the Nigerian extractive industry is very critical to Nigeria as a country because, for instance, the oil and gas industry is responsible for over 70% of our revenue as a government. There's a lot of conflict in the regions that these minerals come from. And these rural people, as they're called, host communities in oil and gas, face a lot of challenges as a result of the insurgence of businesses into those communities.
Whether it's water, whether it's oil, whether it's gas, as long as extraction means you are bringing something from below the surface of the earth, you are bringing it up maybe through a mechanical method or whatever, or through even manual method, but to bring that thing up. And that process always have a kind of impact generally on women.
When the thing change and all these things become scarce, is when this oil spirit is started. Women use palm produce as source of income. Women use palm produce as food for the family here. Women feed the family because we are farmers. We are the users of this land. So saying we can no longer use this land where we get our income, where we get our food, we are highly affected. Bobe takoi mbo a odu mune dito mbo kone koge imudoma. About daga we boko. I don't zekam. I don't zekam inde. No about daga. So bobe bo. Ake bo erara nge kwa ketamu adoma kobe bira be da toka mwangi. Gasi ako aba. Bo community. Ya mba. Bobe burabo. Nima je basera toko abekwa muto. A colleague will say that in Ogoni, people just die. You can see more posters about obituaries in Ogoni. And it is the same thing in other parts of the Niger Delta. Right now, the UN said the life expectancy is at 47 years. That is low. So we breathe in polluted air. We eat polluted food. We drink polluted water.
The research was conducted at the University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital to look at the spermatozoas of male that are resident in Port Harcourt, and it was found out that most of the male residents in Port Harcourt have structural abnormalities of their spermatozoa. Simply put, they cannot impregnate their wives. Unfortunately, we live in a society where infertility is always blamed as on the woman as being responsible. But issues of infertility is 50% women, 50% males.
People were starting saying that I did not conceive for him. That was the reason why he's beating me every day. After beating me at times, he also acts of sex. Which in that process I do not have the mind to do it. I am still beat me again. This day start from 5 in the morning. And it stopped the beating 4 in the evening. I decided that very day that instead I lose my life, let me go.
The Nigerian extractive industry is very critical to Nigeria as a country because, for instance, the oil and gas industry is responsible for over 70% of our revenue as a government. There's a lot of conflict in the regions that these minerals come from. And these rural people, as they're called, host communities in oil and gas, face a lot of challenges as a result of the insurgence of businesses into those communities.
Whether it's water, whether it's oil, whether it's gas, as long as extraction means you are bringing something from below the surface of the earth, you are bringing it up maybe through a mechanical method or whatever, or through one manual method, but to bring that thing up. And that process always have a kind of impact generally on women.
When the thing change and all these things become scarce, is when this oil spillages started. Women use palm produce as source of income. Women use palm produce as food for the family here. Women feed the family because we are farmers. We are the users of this land. So say we can no longer use this land where we get our income, where we get our food, we are highly affected. Bobe takoi, mbo a odu, mune dito, mbo kone koge imudoma. Mbo daga we boko. Alo zekem ine, mbo daga. So bobe bo. Ake bo erara, nge kwake tamu adoma, kobe bira, be da toka mwangi. Gazi abu aba, bo kone dike. Ya amba. Bobe burabo. Nunima, kien basera dro, abe kwa muto. A colleague will say that in Ogoni, people just die. You can see more posters about obituaries in Ogoni. And it is the same thing in other parts of the Niger Delta. Right now, the UN said the life expectancy is at 47 years. That is low. So we breathe in polluted air. We eat polluted food. We drink polluted water.
The research was conducted at the University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital to look at the spermatozoas of male that are resident in Port Harcourt, and it was found out that most of the male residents in Port Harcourt have structural abnormalities of their spermatozoa. Simply put, they cannot impregnate their wives. Unfortunately, we live in a society where infertility is always blamed as on the woman as being responsible. But issues of infertility is 50% women, 50% males.
People were starting saying that I did not conceive for him. That was the reason why he's beating me every day. After beating me at times, he also acts of sex, which in that process I do not have the mind to do it. I will still beat me again. These things start from 5 in the morning, and it stops between 4 in the evening. I decided that very day that instead I lose my life, let me go.
The Nigerian extractive industry is very critical to Nigeria as a country because, for instance, the oil and gas industry is responsible for over 70% of our revenue as a government. There's a lot of conflict in the regions that these minerals come from. And these rural people, as they're called, host communities in oil and gas, face a lot of challenges as a result of the insurgence of businesses into those communities.
Whether it's water, whether it's oil, whether it's gas, as long as extraction means you are bringing something from below the surface, like you are bringing it up maybe through a mechanical method or whatever, or through even manual method, but to bring that thing up. And that process always have a kind of impact generally on women.
When the thing change and all these things become scarce, is when this oil spillages started. Women use palm produce as source of income. Women use palm produce as food for the family here. Women feed the family because we are farmers. We are the users of this land. So saying we can no longer use this land where we get our income, where we get our food, we are highly affected. Bobe takoi mbo a odu mune dito mbo kone koge imudoma. Ngo daga we boko. Alu zekem inde. Ngo daga. So bobe bo. Ake bo erara nge kwake tamu adoma. Kobe dira. Be da toka mwangi. Gasi abu aba. Bo kone dike. Ya mba. Bobe burabo. Nunima tie basera toko. Abe kwa muto. A colleague will say that in Ogboni, people just die. You can see more posters about obituaries in Ogboni. And it is the same thing in other parts of the Niger Delta. Right now, the UN said the life expectancy is at 47 years. That is low. So we breathe in polluted air. We eat polluted food. We drink polluted water.
The research was conducted at the University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital to look at the spermatozoas of male that are resident in Port Harcourt, and it was found out that most of the male residents in Port Harcourt have structural abnormalities of their spermatozoa. Simply put, they cannot impregnate their wives. Unfortunately, we live in a society where infertility is always blamed as on the woman as being responsible. But issues of infertility is 50% women, 50% males.
People were starting saying that I did not conceive for him. That was the reason why he's beating me every day. After beating me at times, he also acts of sex, which in that process I do not have the mind to
Your own account, yes.
beat me again. These things
Anyone. I'm entering meeting now, so if you are communicating, it should be by WhatsApp.
Stop the beating for in the evening. I decided that very day that instead I lose my life, let me go.
The Nigerian extractive industry is very critical to Nigeria as a country because, for instance, the oil and gas industry is responsible for over 70% of our revenue as a government. There's a lot of conflict in the regions that these minerals come from. And these rural people, as they're called, host communities in oil and gas, face a lot of challenges as a result of the insurgence of businesses into those communities.
Whether it's water, whether it's oil, whether it's gas, as long as extraction means you are bringing something from below the surface of the earth, you are bringing it up maybe through a mechanical method or whatever, or through even manual method, but to bring that thing up. And that process always have a kind of impact generally on women.
When the thing change and all these things become scarce, is when this oil spirit is started. Women use palm produce as source of income. Women use palm produce as food for the family here. Women feed the family because we are farmers. We are the users of this land. So saying we can no longer use this land where we get our income, where we get our food, we are highly affected.
Bobe takoi. Mbo a odu. Mune dito. Mbo kone koge imu doma. Mbo daga.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining SITEI, the 14th edition of our Sustainability in the Extractive Industries Conference. Please just begin to introduce yourselves, sit tight, and we would begin this conference very soon. You can introduce yourselves in the chat box, stating your name, your full names, please, the country you're joining from, and your organization. Thank you.
Of our revenue as a government. There's a lot of conflict in the regions that these minerals come from. And these rural people, as they're called, host communities in oil and gas, face a lot of challenges as a result of the insurgence of businesses into those communities.
Whether it's water, whether it's oil, whether it's gas, as long as extraction means you are bringing something from below the surface of the earth, you are bringing it up maybe through a mechanical method or whatever, or through even manual method, but to bring that thing up. And that process always have a kind of impact generally on women.
When the thing change and all these things become scarce, is when this oil spirit is started. Women use palm produce as source of income. Women use palm produce as food for the family here. Women feed the family because we are farmers. We are the users of this land. So saying we can no longer use this land where we get our income, where we get our food, we are highly affected.
Bobe takoi. Mbo a odu. Mune dito. Mbo kone koge imu doma. Mbo daga we boko. Anu zekem. Mbo daga. So bobe bo. Ake bo erara nge kwake tamu adoma. Kobe bira. Be da toka mwangi. Gasi abu aba. Bo kone ndike. Ya mba. Bobe burabo. Nunima tie basera tru avec Wakuto. A colleague will say that in Ogoni, people just die. You can see more posters about obituaries in Ogoni, and it is the same thing in other parts of the Niger Delta. Right now, the UN said the life expectancy is at 47 years. That is low. So we breathe in polluted air. We eat polluted food. We drink polluted water.
The research was conducted at the University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital to look at the spermatozoas of male that are resident in Port Harcourt, and it was found out that most of the male residents in Port Harcourt have structural abnormalities of their spermatozoa. Simply put, they cannot impregnate their wives. Unfortunately, we live in a society where infertility is always blamed as on the woman as being responsible. But issues of infertility is 50% women, 50% males.
People were starting saying that I did not conceive for him. That was the reason why he's beating me every day. After beating me at times, he also acts of sex, which in that process I do not have the mind to do it. I will still beat me again. This thing starts from 5 in the morning and it stopped the beating 4 in the evening. I decided that very day that instead I lose my life, let me go.
Good afternoon once again, everyone. You're welcome to the 14th edition of the Sustainability in the Extractive Industry Conference. And the theme for this year is From Emissions to Assets, Carbon Accounting, Trading and Offsetting in Africa's Extractive Industry. Thank you very much for joining. We are very excited to go into today's session. Please, as we settle in, let's introduce ourselves using the chat box. Once again, I'm going to repeat this. We'll share our full names, organizations, and the country that we are joining from. We'll begin the program shortly, so feel free to connect as we prepare to start. So share your full names, organization, and the country you're joining from, please. Thank you. A quick reminder, please let's ensure to take screenshots as the program goes on. We want to hear everything that you have learned from today's session. We want to hear about your experience from today's session. So you can share this on your social media platforms using the hashtag SITEI 2025. We would love to hear about what you have gained from today's session, please. Thank you. Also, let's take out time to share the link with our friends and colleagues. We want everyone to benefit from this program today. So please, let's share the links with our friends and our colleagues. As we go on, just a couple of housekeeping rules. Please let's ensure that our microphones are muted at all times. If we have any questions or any challenges, let's just drop a message in the chat box. The team is on standby to assist you in any way that you might need. You're welcome to use the chat box to share your comments and reflections as we go on during the speaker sessions. Thank you. Okay, so before we proceed, I would like to acknowledge the Chief Executive of CSR-in-Action, Dr. Bekeme Olowola, who will be delivering the welcome address. We are also honored today to have an exceptional lineup of speakers. Today we have Mr. Chigozie Ejimogu, we have Mr. Femi Oye, and we have Ms. Esther Essien. They are ready to deliver and impact us on carbon accounting, trading, and offsetting in Africa's extractive industry. And I hope we are ready and prepared to receive everything that they would be delivering to us today. Thank you. Okay, so thank you once again to our distinguished speakers and every participant for making out time to be here. We are committed to keeping today's program engaging, insightful, and within the allotted time. So at this point, I'd like to open the floor and invite our Chief Executive, Dr. Bekeme Olowola, to give the welcome address. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us, distinguished speakers, colleagues, partners, and friends. Good afternoon and welcome to this important convening that is SITEI 2025. It's our 15th year already, and I'm excited to see in the hundreds our community of practitioners, policymakers, industry leaders, and innovators gathered once again to deepen the continent's understanding of an area that is really fast becoming one of Africa's most consequential economic opportunities: carbon accounting, credit trading, and high integrity offsetting. Over the last week at COP30 in Belém, Brazil, where I was, and which was a very profound meeting for me, met the nicest, warmest, most engaging people from all over the world. And in Nigeria, one message was consistent. Africa is no longer a peripheral player in the climate economy. We're increasingly the center of global attention because of our natural capital, our demographic advantage, and our growing carbon market ecosystem. COP conversations or COP conversations on Article 6, particularly around bilateral cooperation, integrity in international transfers, also referred to as ITMOs, and host country frameworks, have placed countries like Nigeria in a pivotal position. Our new carbon market activation policy, which was published this year, signals our readiness to participate meaningfully, transparently, and competitively in global carbon markets. And it does lay out the ambition to attract billions in climate investment by 2030. Now, what this means in practice is that Nigeria and Africa must now move from high-level vision to grounded capability. This is where the SITEI platform once again becomes not just relevant, but necessary. As highlighted in our concept note, for those who may have taken time out to read it, Africa's carbon market potential is immense. The continent could produce up to 300 million tons of carbon credits annually by 2030, with an estimated economic value of $6 billion and the potential to create up to 30 million jobs. These are not just abstract numbers, these are livelihoods, fiscal buffers, community opportunities, and national competitiveness. Now, across the discussions which took place at COP, including those around high quality MRV, carbon credit integrity, and local value capture, it is clear that Africa must lead its own trajectory. We must define our standards, we must set our pace and shape the narrative. This is why CSR-in-Action has continued for over a decade, actually 15 years, to champion the intersection of extractives, community rights, environmental governance, and now climate finance. Through SITEI, we have built bridges where there were silos, we have shaped the discourse when it was still nascent, and we have consistently convened stakeholders around the issues that matter. Today's webinar continues that tradition. Our session is deliberately structured to take us from foundation to finance, beginning with the fundamentals of carbon accounting and moving through MRV systems, through sector-specific opportunities, through community-level interventions, and finally, investor expectations. This mirrors what we have been hearing at COP, that the era of casual participation is over. African institutions must become technically strong. We must become financially credible and be investment ready, very importantly. And at CSR-in-Action, we're deeply committed to operationalizing this shift. Beyond our advisory and governance work, we have co-developed a specialized project delivery field tree, which reflects our expertise in project-based carbon accounting and high integrity emissions measurement. Field tree delivers a virtual cylinder recirculation model, aka VCRM, for clean cooking, particularly LPG, underpinned by technology and a technology-enabled MRV and AI that tracks real household consumption, quantifies emission reductions, and assures accuracy through from baseline through credit issuance. This approach really embodies the essence of Article 6, which is credible mitigation outcomes that create real value for investors, while ensuring that communities retain meaningful social and economic benefits, which has been core to the work that we've been doing for the past 15 years. With Africa's carbon market potential valued at over 6 billion annually by 2030, Futree is a transparent, scalable, and investment-ready platform to help financiers participate in that opportunity whilst keeping communities at the heart of the value chain where they truly belong. Work with Futree through a partnership with SME Capital and CCNA reflects the value that we always bring to institutions. We try to provide clarity in a complex space, which is also why we're having this conversation, credibility in an evolving market, and community integrated solutions that stand the test of scrutiny. For over 15 years, we've continued to shape the governance and sustainability landscape. And I must say that we're truly honored to deepen that contribution at a time when the world is watching Africa. I would like at this juncture to again thank our exceptional speakers whose expertise is central to this conversation. We look forward to sectoral insights from Esther Essien, foundational mapping and technical bridging merged with the practical community dimension from Femi Oye, and the economic impact perspective from Emeka Ochu. Each of our speakers bring a vital piece of the puzzle, and we're very honored to have you enrich this discourse. To our stakeholders, whether you're government, industry, communities, academia, and civil society, our message is really simple. We and the ecosystem stand ready to support you, whether through capacity building, MRV systems, project development, stakeholder engagement, or climate finance structuring. We remain committed to helping Nigeria and Africa transition to turn emissions into assets and ambition into action. That's why there's an action in our name. So feel free to reach out to us following this conversation via our website, CSR-in-Action.com, or via email at info@csr-in-action.com. And I also hope, as we hope through all of our engagements, that there's opportunity for continuous engagement across the different networks, whether it's with our speakers or, seeing someone in the chat who's introduced themselves. The important thing is that we continue to engage and we continue to grow our ecosystem for the benefit of all. So thank you all so much for joining us. I do wish us all a stimulating and transformational session ahead. So thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bekeme Oluola, for that amazing welcome speech. Thank you very much. We thank you especially for your insights on Africa no longer being a peripheral player in the global economy and insights on field tree and the value that it brings. Once again, I'd like to indulge everyone to please use the hashtag SITEI2025 to post insights from today's session. Thank you. We will now proceed to today's agenda. I'm very sure we're all eager to learn about from emissions to assets, carbon accounting, trading, and offsetting in Africa's extractive sector. I beg your pardon. To begin, I would like to introduce the moderator for today, Mr. Chigozie Ejimogu. Okay. We are pleased to introduce Mr. Chigozie Ima Ejimogu as our moderator for SITEI 2025. Mr. Ejimogu is a seasoned sustainability and impact professional with more than 12 years of cross-industry experience spanning private equity, FMCG, and the oil and gas value chain. As head of sustainability at Verod Capital Management, he works at the intersection of ESG, climate strategy, climate finance, impact measurement, and gender, guiding investment decisions and portfolio transformation across Anglophone West Africa. He holds a Master of Laws, LLM, from the University of South Wales and a diploma in International Environmental Law from UNITA, strengthening his experience in global sustainability and climate governance. I would want us all to clap our hands as we welcome Mr. Ejimogu. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you have, if not flattered me too much. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. So I'd like to thank immensely Dr. Bekeme for that insightful opener. I think I had opportunity to learn a little bit more on what is going on in COP30. So thank you so much for that wonderful speech. So without wasting time, I think we'll go straight into it. Today is packed with a lot of knowledge. The topic speaks it all. The topic is very well crafted, from emissions to assets, carbon accounting, trading, and offsetting in Africa's extractive sector. Personally, I'm also very eager to learn today. We've got very distinguished personalities in the room, people with rich knowledge, and vast exposure in this particular area that will help us, and take us through this journey today. So I will go straight to introduce these great people. I guess you would like to know them, and thanks to Dr. Bakem, I think she mentioned some of them a little bit. So I will do a bit more deep dive into who they are before we now go into the main conversation. So I will start with Mr. Femi Oye. So Mr. Femi Oye is the co-founder, Kike AI, and CEO, Kike Technologies. Mr. Femi Oye is a technology and sustainability entrepreneur, leading Kike AI, an intelligent kitchen assistant app that is transforming Nigeria's food and gas ecosystems. He also serves as the chief executive of Kike Technologies under the SME Funds umbrella, driving innovation in energy accessibility, predictive analytics, and economic inclusion. With his leadership, Kike AI uses advanced algorithms to forecast household gas consumption, alerting users before their cylinder runs out, and enabling timely refills. This predictive function significantly improves supply chain efficiency, reduces the risk of running out of cooking gas, and supports safe and sustainable gas usage. Mr. Oye's vision goes beyond convenience. He aims to generate 1 million jobs across delivery, logistics, food retail through the app's economic model. He is also the driving force behind the Kike AI Campus Impact Challenge 2025, a national innovation competition offering 2.5 million in prizes, a trip to New York, and internship opportunities targeted at university students to catalyze entrepreneurship in food and gas sector. His public commentary underlines a strong commitment to inclusive economic development. He advocates for deploying artificial intelligence to democratize access to clean energy and empower marginalized communities, particularly women, through entrepreneurial platform. Please join me. Join me to welcome this great man in the room today. He's got rich knowledge in this field, and all of us will benefit today from what he has for us. So another very distinguished personality I would like to introduce as a member of the panel today is Miss Esther Essien, Deputy Director, Strategy and Innovation Management Department, Central Bank of Nigeria. Ms. Essien is a dedicated environmental advocate with a solid foundation in agricultural economics and is currently pursuing a doctorate in sustainable development at the University of Abuja. Her professional development includes certification in climate finance, CFA Institute, gender equality and human rights and climate action, and strategic management of regulatory and enforcement agencies, Harvard University. With over 20 years of experience at the Central Bank of Nigeria, she has successfully led initiatives that integrate sustainability principles into banking operations and policy frameworks. Her areas of interest span climate change mitigation and adaptation, sustainable agriculture, waste management, and pollution control. She has contributed to research on water pollution, blue economy, and environmental governance. She's a certified mentor within the CBN and a professional fellow of the Emergency Crisis and Disaster Risk Management Institute, Nigeria, a member of Nigeria Institute of Management, and an associate member of Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment, UK. She currently heads the Strategy Focus Division, where she communicates the bank strategy and manages the enterprise knowledge management framework of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Please also join me with emoji to welcome Ms. Essien to today's conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll kick off now right into it. Of course, all of us the topic of sustainability is no longer a topic that occupies the backbench. The global community and all countries have woken up to the realities of the importance of sustainability. And of course, Africa's extractive sector sits at a critical intersection of global climate ambition and economic development. So as the world accelerates towards net zero, emissions from oil and gas and mining are undergoing strong scrutiny, but they also represent significant opportunities, from robust carbon accounting and methane reduction to carbon trading, flare gas monetization, and high integrity offset projects. Extractive companies can convert emission challenges into real financial and environmental assets. Getting this right requires credible measurement, transparent reporting, strong market governance, and innovative financing. With this in mind, I would like to open the conversation with a focus on how Africa's extractive industry can move from compliance-driven carbon reporting to leveraging carbon as a value driver. So I will start the conversation with Mr. Femi. Of course, we'll dwell with Mr. Femi for a while just to tap a little bit more what he knows about this topic. So as organizations and investors increasingly pursue net zero commitment, carbon credits have become an essential tool in global climate action. At their core, carbon credits represent verified reductions or removals of greenhouse gas emissions generated through projects such as reforestation, renewable energy, clean cooking, methane capture. They create a market mechanism that allows companies to offset unavoidable emissions while channeling finance into climate-positive projects, particularly in emerging markets. However, questions remain around credit quality, integrity, additionality, monitoring, and the role of credit in credible transition plans. With growing scrutiny from regulators, investors, and civil society, understanding the fundamentals of carbon credit is crucial for navigating the evolving landscape of carbon markets. So to start us off, Mr. Femi, could you please break down what carbon credits are and how carbon markets actually function, both in the voluntary and compliance space globally? And looking at the emerging business case, how can organizations convert emission reductions into viable revenue streams through carbon credit generation? Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chigozie. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here at the 14th edition of the SITEI conference. And the theme this year, from emission to asset, this perfectly captures the paradigm shift. And we are going to explore a little bit more about that today. So my name is Femi Oye, and in this session, we will build a foundational understanding of carbon credit and carbon accounting that is moving all the way to how they can be implemented, particularly within Africa, vital extractive sector. Let's start with the fundamental question. What is carbon credit? What is carbon credit? So we simply put that as a certificate representing 1 ton of carbon dioxide equivalent that is prevented or that is stopped from escaping or entering into the atmosphere. When we remove these, that is where the concept of carbon emission comes in. And because this is tradable and its core purpose is to put a monetary value on that carbon, creating a financial incentives to reduce emission. Monetary value on carbon. And let's make this concrete with an example, as you can see on the slide. So the act of reducing emission directly generates a new tradable commodity. So the key takeaway here is that carbon credit transforms an abstract environmental responsibility into a measurable, tradable asset. And this is the core of the term from emission to asset. Next slide. So where are these assets traded? They are traded on the carbon market. The diagram here illustrates the flow of credit and payment between different emitters and participants. So while complex, the key is to understand that there are two primary types of market in this context. So the first one is called the voluntary market. This is where companies like Microsoft, Alibaba, Shopify choose to buy credit from, which we call offset now, which to offset their emission, often as part of their corporate sustainability goal. And the second part, which is the second market, is called the compliance market. So the first one, voluntary market, then the compliance market. This is the one that is led by the government. So it's a mandatory government set a cap or emission, and companies are legally required to surrender credits to for their emission. For example, we have the EU emission trading scheme, which is the world's largest emission trading program. We can have a scenario as such, like take for example LNG company can invest in a clean cooking project. This clean cooking project is like an asset now, which can be bundled and designed to reduce household emission from, say, firewood or from burning charcoal. And when this switch happens, it generates carbon credits, and those credits can be sold to international buyers and local companies as well that have strong ESG target can as well buy some of these credits. So this creates a win-win. The global emissions are reduced, and of course, project that is developed, being the Cookstove project, also generate revenue, and a whole lot of participants also benefit across that value chain. The next slide, please. So we talked about the Africa's position in the global carbon economy. So this brings us to the immense opportunity for Africa. The global demand for carbon credit is projected to be around 300 million tons by 2030. And African credit, known for its high quality and community benefits, which we sometimes call co-benefits now, can command premium price. Prices could range from between $15 to $20 per ton. And when you have a good African-led quality carbon credit, it can be as high as $60 per ton. So this translates to a potential revenue stream of about $6 billion annually, billion dollars now annually for the continent. And we have a case study in Kenya which perfectly illustrates this. A reforestation project offsets about 50,000 tons of CO2, sells the credit to Europe, and uses the revenue to fund local school and clinic projects and programs. So this is a powerful model of green growth. Next slide. So let's look at some business case as well, turning emission into revenue. Let's bring it home. What is the direct business case? So carbon credit creates a new revenue streams. Emission reduction are no longer just a cost of compliance anymore. They are actually a sellable product. So the benefits are multi-layered. You monetize your green initiatives, you strengthen your ESG reporting, which build investors' confidence, and you can directly fund sustainable development program in host communities where you operate. So consider this powerful example relevant to our sector. An oil company reduces routine gas flaring. This action generates carbon credit, moving away from what we call the business as usual, selling those credits to international buyers. It creates a dedicated fund for local healthcare projects. It can as well be piped or netted into generating electricity, providing healthcare services for local communities, create jobs for indigent communities. I mean, you improve your environmental footprint, your social license to operate, and you get the trust of the community. And of course, the bottom line, ultimately improve. So let's go to the next slide, please. Looking at more depth into the carbon accounting and making this real. So, but you can't manage what you can't measure, right? So this is where carbon accounting comes in. It is the bedrock that makes carbon credit in itself credible. Is the process of systematically measuring all your greenhouse gas emission across your operations. So we rely on international ISO standards, GHG protocols to ensure consistency and credibility. So the process involves about 3 key steps. The first one is you identify your emission sources. So we categorize them into scope 1, which is your direct emission from your own sources. We have scope 2, which is the indirect emission, for example, from purchased electricity. And we have scope 3, which talks about all other indirect emission from the entire value chain, direct, indirect, and the value chain. And number 2, we have the second one that talks about collect activity data. How much fuel you burn, how much electricity you consume. And the third one is you apply these standardized emission factors to convert that activity data into the CO2 equivalent. So this gives you what you call your carbon footprint. Let's get into the next one, please. Measuring, reporting, and verification. So to turn that carbon footprint we talked about into certified carbon credit, after you've captured, you've measured this, of course, it's certified. You must undergo a rigorous process to be able to ensure that you achieve the certification, which brings about the concept of the MRV. So the MRV is the measurement, reporting, and verification. So this is the quality assurance systems for the carbon market. So you measure, you quantify your emission reduction using pre-approved methodologies. It must be one of those ones that align with the particular programs that you undertake, depending on your interest or the specific industry that you operate. So the reporting part of it is you document everything transparently. And number 3, you verify. An independent third-party auditor checks your work to confirm it's real, it's measurable, and of course, it's permanent. So these are the key principles and the key components that guide high quality, authentic carbon credit eligible program. So only then are credit issued. So a scenario where a mining company installs a methane capture system, they monitor the capture gas monthly, an auditor comes around to verify the data that have been provided, and once this is confirmed, the credits are issued and can be sold. And this external verification is what gives buyers confidence. That's one, baseline and additionality. So 2 of the most critical concepts in carbon projects are baseline and additionality. What is baseline? The baseline is a projection of what would have happened without the carbon projects that is now being developed. We talked about the business as usual scenario. So if the activity had not happened, what would have been the business as usual case? So we call that baseline, where you are today if nothing had happened. So the next one is additionality. Additionality means that the emission reduction your project achieves must be additional to what you have and occurred under that baseline scenario. In other words, the carbon finance must be the key reason the project is viable. So it means if your business or that project could happen without the motivation of deriving carbon credit from it, if you cannot justify that carbon credit finance, the carbon finance is a critical part of the reason you are pursuing that carbon project, then there is no reason for additionality. Therefore, that project might not be able to pass or move forward to being issued a credit on or credit certificate for it. So for example, a clean cooking project in Lagos. So we look at the baseline, which is the household continue to use firewood. And the reduction comes from household now switching. For example, the field trip that Dr. Bekeme talked about, where field trip helps organization that want to participate in carbon credit program, or they want to enhance their ESG program, or they have some compliance metrics to meet with their investors. So a very quick win is to get into an LPG cookstove carbon project. So the reduction comes from household switching to LPG. The baseline here, don't forget, is the firewood. Then the departed or the new reality is households now moved to a cleaner fuel, which is LPG. And the third part, additionality, is that you must show that the project happened because of, the emission that you have accounted for happened because of that switch. So that it wouldn't have happened if not because a carbon project was developed around that change from firewood to LPG. And it is only when it is an additional, which is the additionality clause, that the credit that is associated with project is legitimate. Next one, let's look at carbon project cycle, tying it together. So how do you actually create a carbon project? It follows a clear life cycle, which we see in these two identical slides, emphasizing its importance. So let's quickly walk through few steps. Identification. This talks about finding an opportunity within your operations, like reducing the gas flaring that I mentioned, or improving energy efficiency. So in most of our industry, most of our operation, it's locked in there. So it's just to be able to identify what can be that, what can create that additionality, what can create that opportunity to move and depart from business as usual. So the other one is feasibility. In developing a carbon finance project, we talked about feasibility study, and you have to do a feasibility of the program, assess the potential scale, cost, and revenue that is associated with the program. And design and documentation is the next one. So this is crucial because you must be able to design your project using a methodology from a recognized standards like the Vera and the good standard. And we understand Lagos State as well is working on a registry, and it's going to publish its own standard as well. So you can use any of these standard as reference for designing and for arranging the documentation towards the project's development. Then we go to implementation. At the implementation stage is where you roll out the technology or the community program that is now being embarked on. You've adopted probably LPG switch or biofuel switch or EV switch. You've identified that, so you now need to roll that out. Then the next one is monitoring and reporting. So you have to continuously track, monitor, report the data that is associated with the activity that is now being undertaken. Then you move into verification and certification. So these are carried out by third party. So you get the third party audit, and from the audit, then the carbon credit can come in. Then after your projects have successfully scaled through all these rigorous processes and the credit has been issued, now goes to the final stage, which is trading. So you have to take this credit that you have to the market in exchange for money. So that is the final step where you sell them in the market. And we have a couple of markets around the world where you can take your credit to get buyers that already have some cap or that have some commitments or targets to meet. To conclude, carbon accounting and credit offers a powerful mechanism for the extractive industry to lead the green transition, creating value from responsibility. So we have moved from the foundation of what a credit is during this submission to implementation through project life cycle. And I strongly hope that this has helped to demystify or present some deeper context around the topic and show how the tangible opportunity that we have can actually be converted into an investment ready, bankable, and a promising action that can help to drive the ESG goal, ESG commitment, and of course, to present opportunity for the most communities where businesses operate today. And I hope if we have any question or you have any comment, you can as well use the chat to drop it, and we'll be able to get more into that. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. And before I just move on, maybe I just take another few minutes to quickly share a case study. I don't know, Mr. Moderator, do I still have little time to take part?
Yeah, we can just, because of the importance of what we want to share, so maybe we can give you like 2 minutes to quickly wrap up.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't know if I can get the other slide up. Okay, thank you so much. So this just build on what I already explained, is a bit more of the technical that I've just done. Just to quickly tell you a key story around how this can effectively be turned into an amazing opportunity for any organization, any
Femi, Mr. Femi,
impact
can you still
entire
hear us?
community.
Okay.
Sorry, you saying something?
Yeah, go ahead. We lost you briefly, but
Okay,
go
you
ahead.
can hear
You're
me
back
now.
now. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So here we have a roadmap. We are going to quickly look at what the crisis. You can move to the next slide, please. What the crisis is. Next one, please. Yes, thank you. So we're going to start by really understanding the crisis that is hiding in plain sight in millions of kitchens. Then we will look at the incredible carbon fuel engine that is actually powering that solution. After that, we'll quickly walk through the blueprint for how this all works. See how to measure an amazing impact, and finally, we can look at how we can all help cook up a much better future for our planet and for everyone. Next slide, please. So, next slide, please. So the next one, please. Sorry, because of time. Yeah, just go to the where you have the 95%. Yeah, thank you. So 95,000 death. This is not a worldwide death data. It's actually associated to Nigeria alone. That is just in Nigeria. So every single year, what that means is that like a major health crisis is looming. So 95,000 deaths that we have in Nigeria associated to indoor air pollution. And on one side, you have the devastating health and next slide, please, and social emergency. It is women and children who are hit the hardest. They are suffering from all kinds of respiratory illnesses and also from something called time poverty. Because on this presentation, I just want to tell a story and build a case on why clean cooking has become a revolution today. And more deaths occur than malaria, than typhoid in Nigeria in the kitchen, associated to how we cook. And respiratory illnesses are also from something called time poverty. So we are talking about hours of wasted time and productivity that women have to spend from fetching tree, walking miles. Most girls are raped in the north just because they're trying to put a meal on the table. And the other side of this image talks about the spiraling environmental crisis. It's fueling massive deforestation and plumping out carbon emission. And the trend here is terrifying because if we do nothing by 2060, it's actually going to triple in terms of the amount of carbon emission that will be in the atmosphere. And what if the problem itself which is the pollution now, could actually pay for its own solution. So we have a climate crisis, we have health crisis. So the question is, how if this same problem that we've identified can actually pay, next slide please, for the solution that is required? The key to this whole thing is something called carbon credits, as we've identified. So what exactly is it? Think of it like a certificate, a permit you get for stopping 1 ton of CO2, like I've explained from the other slide. And when we reduce and we remove and we are able to capture this, we can actually turn it into a tradable asset in the market. Next slide, please. We've talked about carbon credit today. So the biggest hurdle for clean cooking is usually that of the initial cost. The cost of buying a stove or the cost of buying a cylinder. And that's exactly where the opportunity comes from. Next slide, please. So how do you actually take this great idea and turn it into something that is real, something that is bankable? Well, it is not magic. It is a structured, verifiable process that we have explained today. Next slide. Okay, just stop here for a bit. So think of it like you are building a legal case. We have step 1 here, where we have to gather all the evidences. I said this in my previous presentation. Then you goes into baseline study. And of course, step 2 is you write your argument, which is the project design now, the documentation, which lays out exactly how you are going to fix it. And of course, we move into step 3, where you gather the evidence. So you distribute the cook stoves. And then step 4 is where you get the third party independent judge point. Now, where the third party comes in, the auditor looks at all the numbers, all the distribution, validate all the households that are now using this LPG cook stoves as against the business as usual, the baseline, which is charcoal or firewood or kerosene. Then you move on from there to step 6, and of course, the revenue comes from the carbon credit that you get. And of course, this fund can ultimately be plowed back even into expanding and enabling even more households to also come into the clean cooking space. Next slide, please. So measuring what actually matter, and we can convert, next slide please, these thousands of hours into thousands of revenue and into millions. Next slide please. Into millions of revenue for every organization. So you create a clean cooking program as an organization. You identify a community that you want to implement the program. You identify the household that is going to benefit from the program. You distribute the cook stoves to them. Then you use the approved methodology and you connect a verifiable MRV platform like the type that Future offer, and you are able to capture this. Then you are able to send all this data directly to the third party, the verifiers and the auditors. And once this is verified, then credit is issued. So from our experience, we understand a project can deliver up to between 400 to 450% return for every $1 that is actually put on the project, because it has a runway of about 10 years, and every year you are getting carbon credits and you are able to sell this carbon credit. So the cost of the project itself pays itself within the second to third year, and company can keep profit, and company can, of course, be able to expand on their impact. So finally, we talked about examples of some programs that have done this. So we are talking about what is already working, where we can learn from, and what we can as well replicate. We have, for example, in Ghana, so there is a carbon finance program in Ghana that have helped build rural energy networks that bring clean cooking to thousands of people. And of course, we have in Indonesia, where we have innovative digital monitoring solution that makes the entire process even more efficient and transparent. And of course, we have, next slide please, we also have in Nigeria, being led by Future, that is helping companies to use AI, artificial intelligence, with advanced telemetry technology, coupled with approved MRV system to verify tradable assets, and they are able to sell this for carbon credit. So finally, the path is clear. We have the technology in LPG. We have the mechanism in carbon finance, and the transition from firewood to LPG is one of the most tangible way to convert emission into asset. We convert assets into funds that help improve health, empower women, that create jobs, protect our environment, and of course, increase shareholders' value. So let's commit to working together. We are developers, or we are government, or investors, to create that every kitchen in Nigeria and across Africa can actually become a hub for sustainable development. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Femi. This is very, very insightful, delivered very brilliantly, and quite expository. I believe strongly that our participant today must have learned a lot in this. Please help me join Faith and others. Clap for Femi for this wonderful section. Thank you so much, Femi. There will be questions and answer section. We'll try as much as possible to manage our time so that we can create like 10 to 15 minutes just to take questions and even some remarks, from the audience. Thank you so much. So we move on now. In case you didn't get some of the point Femi raised, I'll just quickly do a recap, so that you can maybe update your notes. So Femi did say that a carbon credit is a tradable certificate that represents 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide or its equivalent, that has been reduced. That carbon, that emission must have been reduced or avoided or removed, from the atmosphere. And he gave example such as reforestation. He talked about clean cooking, which basically he dwelled on this, for a while. He talked about methane capture and the rest. So each credit is issued only after an independent body verifies. So verification, you had when he mentioned about measurement, verification, and reporting. So that is very, 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 very critical. So how it works, companies are given or buy credit, and each represent, as I said, 1 ton of CO2. The goal of carbon credit basically is to reduce emission by making pollution costly, and also incentivizing it for companies that actually have no other option other than to emit. Of course, there are companies that must emit, they call them hard to decarbonize sector. So in one way or the other, they must emit. So in that sense, they would have to go buy carbon credit from other companies that could not exhaust their own allocation. So that is it. A market is created when a company is not able to exhaust the emission it's supposed to emit according to the allocation given to it, and then it has excess. That excess becomes tradable, and then there are also projects that, as he mentioned. So if you look at what we are wasting, particularly in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria, is huge. The information in the public, put the volume of gas fled in 2024 at in excess of 200 billion cubic feet of natural gas. 200 billion, more than 200 billion cubic feet of natural gas, fled in 2024. And this is equivalent to emitting around about 380 million tons of CO2 equivalent. And if you monetize this, it can give you, fund in excess of $300 million, and can also power household in excess of 3 million. So Nigeria, and particularly the oil and gas sector of the country, is actually sitting on gold, but has not actually taken concrete actions to harness these opportunities. But thankfully, that the awareness is growing. A lot of oil companies are jumping at it, particularly the National Oil Company. Within the NNPC, the awareness is stronger, as more than it used to be now. And many other companies are following suit, at least to take the first step to even understanding what your emission profile look like, what Femi referred to as baseline, just to understand what is existing, before the project or before any intervention that you have to do. So all of these are the point, and many more are the point that he made in his section. So once again, we'd like to say a big thank you to Mr. Femi for that wonderful section. So now we are moving on to the second section. This second section will be anchored by Ms. Esther Essien. I introduced her earlier, Deputy Director in the Strategy and Innovation Management Department of the Central Bank of Nigeria. So Ms. Esther will be helping us today to explore opportunities in the extractive sector, just to probably provide some answers as to the question, where do we see the strongest commercial value today? Specifically, how can companies scale methane capture and flare gas reduction projects? Please join me with emoji welcome on board, Ms. Femi. Ms. Femi, you have the floor. Sorry, Ms. Essien, you have the floor. I beg your pardon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chigozie, for the insightful wrap-up. And for our first speaker, Mr. Femi, it was quite an impactful session. I must say that CSR in action, you are doing quite a lot. Putting all this together and sharing this insight is a good one, a great one. And we believe or hope that we will adopt and apply it for the betterment of Nigeria. Here, I'll be looking at carbon opportunities and extractives, where the money is. And by way of introduction, we will all remember that the extractive industries, where we have the natural gas, the oil, the mining sector of the economy. And they have been associated or said to be in time past, and even currently, with being the highest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, and thus impacting greatly on the climate change. With the global shift towards a low carbon economy, the extractive industry is playing.
Sorry. Can you adjust your device a little bit so that your face can be very visible?
Okay.
So, yeah, people want to see your face and also admire you.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Okay. I think that's better, right?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so with the shift in the global economy towards low carbon emission, a lot is being demanded from the extractive industry. In Nigeria and Africa as a whole, this transition is not merely environmental. It also represents a major strategic economic opportunity. There are opportunities in moving from the business as usual. The extractive companies can convert emissions reduction activities into direct revenue and enhance competitiveness, as well as access to green investment. New business models can be formed from this, which will in fact lead to a future with reduced or a better energy sector. We also understand that the extractive industry is a sector that, defines or does a lot to the energy sector, especially here in Nigeria. We are so dependent on it. And the fact that Nigeria is also a mono economy, not really diversifying to other aspects, leaves us with very little to do. Let us examine the full range of carbon opportunities that are available, even in this extractive industry. We have the industrial decarbonization and operational efficiencies, the methane capture and gas flaring reduction, which even the first speaker has mentioned, renewable energy integration, and carbon capture and storage is also another opportunity that can be harnessed. There are also nature-based solutions like the reforestation, which can be harnessed for this purpose. And then we'll also look at framework for returns on investment and revenue generation. if time permits, we can just take a look at a few case studies within Africa. The flaring of gas really, if converted, would help us to achieve this. We may need very little funding from the external sources. However, that's an opportunity that we keep throwing away. I still remember in the year 2000, Nigeria kept saying by the year 2004, 2005, we would have stopped gas flaring completely. But that's still ongoing. The second climate commitment that Nigeria made was the net zero emissions target, where we said that by the year 2060, we would have transitioned, we would have had net zero emissions. Work is in progress. Looking at the 2030 commitment, Nigeria is working towards it. And like I said, if only we can do more, we will be able to achieve more. The opportunity landscape here for us are enormous, such as the industry application and energy efficiency improvements, the methane capture project, gas flaring reduction and associated gas utilization, renewable energy integration. We also have the carbon capture and storage, nature-based solutions, structured returns on investments and revenue modeling frameworks. These opportunities unlock values through cost savings, emission trading, fuel substitution, and new commercial models. Let's look at the industrial application and revenue generation. The extractive operations are energy intensive, and every unit of energy saved or repurposed yields significant cost benefit. Electrification of processes, that's switching from diesel powered shipments to electric or hybrid alternatives would reduce operational emissions and fuel costs. Also, the energy efficiency technology would be a good way of saving costs. It's just for companies to upgrade using high efficiency pumps and compressors, waste heat recovery systems, automated digital monitoring. And this can reduce energy use by 10 to 40%. We also have the low carbon product certification, where the markets increasingly reward products deemed low emissions or net zero aligned. The certified national gas, that is the LNG, the minerals attract premium pricing. Some of the revenue potentials also include the reduced fuel expenditure, higher output efficiency, carbon credits from energy savings projects, such as that which Mr. Femi Oye had talked about, then access to sustainability-linked loans and lower borrowing costs. Industrial optimization remains the lowest hanging fruits for the extractives. Talking about the methane capture and gas flaring reduction, which has been a concern for Nigeria over decades. We know that methane globally has warming potential of about 84 times greater than the CO2, that's the carbon dioxide. And it's reducing a qubit or reducing an abatement of it would really impact on climate action. And it remains a core opportunity for the extractives. So instead of flaring, it's quite a laudable thing to convert it to other uses. There are some methane capture solutions like the leak detection and repair, the vent gas recovery, the pipeline upgrades, and the compressor station optimization. Talking about gas flaring reduction projects, some of them include the modular gas processing, the LPG extraction, the CNG and mini LNG production. Nigeria is really working towards this now. However, it has its own challenges, and we hope that with time we will overcome these challenges. There are also the gas to power plants for host communities or the industrial clusters. Another avenue is monetization, as the sale of processed gas into national markets. It could also be sold across the borders, and this will bring in forex for our nation, Nigeria, or for whichever country that is involved in that. And then the high value carbon credits, which has been talked about so much. And carbon credits can be, purchased from across international markets. So it's not just limited to Nigeria. And when this is done, chances are that we will earn forex out of it. And that will increase our reserve base and reduce the pressure on our foreign exchange. It will eventually lead to, a more stable, exchange rate for us. Then savings from reduced flaring penalties, because there are penalties that companies the extractives have to pay, but sometimes it looks like the penalties aren't hard enough, or maybe they are not fully implemented. So they prefer to flay rather than do something about it. But thinking about the fact that this is very injurious to health, like the moderator talked about, took time to give a little bit of analysis on this. This really injurious to health. I think this should also cause us to sit down, reflect, and think of these new ways, innovative ways of doing this. The renewable energy integration and carbon capture storage is another aspect that can be taken in. Renewable energy can be integrated, that the extractives can actually integrate solar farms into their operations. They can also use the wind turbines, hybrid mini grids, battery storage system for this. And the benefits from this would lead to between 20 to 50% reduction in energy costs. It will also lead to greater operational resilience, reduce diesel consumption. And by reducing the consumption on diesel, it means lowering the emissions or lowering the carbon footprint of that company, and in fact, impacting less on that local community. Like the advert that was shown before, or the commentary that was run before the program commenced fully. A number of people, talked about how the environment had been degraded. That was in River State, Port Harcourt, and where the farmers can no longer cultivate their plants, and even the fishes in the water in the rivers are gone. And the food eaten, the products that come out are already polluted. The air itself is polluted. We see cases where people put their white clothes on the line and then come back and it's, filled with soot. If you look at the rooftops of houses in those areas where there's explorations and extractions go on, they are filled or covered with soot. And these are the things that we inhale, just like the cooking gas, like that Mr. Sam Oye talked about. It's impacting on the health of not just the people in River State, because those things travel a long range. It will also get to you in Abuja, in Lagos, and wherever. So we have to be committed to reducing our carbon footprint. The carbon capture and storage is also another opportunity that would allow the extractive companies to capture CO2 from their operations. It could be transported, injected into depleted reserves for long-term storage. This will also unlock new business lines. CCS as a service could be unlocked from there. Storage for industrial clusters can also be a business opportunity. And then the carbon removal credits generation is also another one. And then the most exciting one for me is the nature-based solutions. And this really simple and easy to do, but it requires commitment. The nature-based solutions, including reforestation around operational landscapes, offer highly cost-effective carbon sequestration opportunities. At least in those areas where the extractions has taken place, trees could be planted there, and these trees will absorb the carbon. Reforesting mined out or disturbed areas is a great opportunity for the extractives. The mangroves would be restored. Mangrove restoration is also part of it. The soil carbon management, biodiversity corridor development are also part of what can be done. And it would benefit us in different ways to generate long duration carbon credits, strengthen community relations, because when the land is restored, definitely it will give the extractive companies operating there better image and better relationship. It would enhance biodiversity and then the soil health. It will also improve company ESG scores. This will naturally, attract finance, because international climate funds are available for companies that do this. Looking at returns on investment analysis, there are key return on investment drivers, such as the capital cost of technology or projects, whatever project or the technology that is in use, then the volume of emissions reduced or captured, carbon credits pricing forecast, gas sales revenues for flared gas capture, operational cost savings, and then the payback period and internal rates of return. Typical payback period ranges from, for the energy efficiency projects, could be between 1 to 3 years. Of course, it would vary also depending on the kind of project that is being carried out. Then the methane capture could take between 2 to 5 years. Renewable energy, we understand renewable energy integration could take up to between 3 to 7 years. We understand that the initial cost is usually very intensive. However, the benefit, takes a while. The benefit come in and it supersedes the cost. The nature-based solutions like reforestation, depending on the kind of trees that are planted, could take between 5 to 15 years for the benefits to be realized. And then for the carbon capture and storage, this could be a medium to a long-term investment depending on the scale. So let's just look at a few case studies. I hope I still have time. Okay, looking at the Seplat Energy, briefly, their focus area is on associated Seplat Energy Nigeria. Their focus area is on associated gas capture. They carry out local power partnership, also have gas to power and regional offtake. They have the domestic gas sales and then carbon credits from methane reduction. They also carry out regional electricity supply. There is need for pipeline and transmission upgrades and also cross-border energy trade framework. There's also the Tulo Energy in Ghana, our neighbors here. And their strength is basically on the operational ecosystem for gas re-injection. So they carry out gas re-injection and they have potential to scale gas to industry supply. The value opportunities here remains the monetization of gas that was previously re-injected or flared. So this helps to reduce the flaring of gas and then, of course, to enhance the carbon credits, which also can be monetized or is being monetized. We can also take a look at Sasso, a South African company. They have advanced industrial decarbonization and they pilot the CCS and green hydrogen initiatives. Opportunities in pipeline exist like the large-scale industrial carbon management and regional supply of low-carbon fuel. So taking a few recommendations and next steps. For the extractive companies, it is important to prioritize methane capture as the fastest payback carbon initiative. Investment in renewable powered operations to reduce long-term operational expenditure is recommended. Building CCS capabilities using existing geological sets is another recommendation. And then expanding the nature-based solution across the operational landscape is very key. And developing carbon accounting and measurement excellence will help us to become competitive and also desirable by the international communities. And for the policymakers and regulators, it is key to create carbon credit integrity standards, and also to strengthen flaring and methane emissions regulations. In Nigeria, we have done something about the carbon credit, but I really don't know when we start implementing. We are to support cross-border energy and carbon trade frameworks, provide fiscal incentives for carbon technology adoption. Conclusively, I would say that carbon opportunities in the extractive industries represent one of the most transformative economic prospects of the decade. From methane capture to renewable integration, nature-based solution, extractive companies can unlock new revenue streams while advancing national climate commitment. Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, and other African nations stand at the threshold of a new era where carbon is not a liability, but an economic asset. That liability can indeed be converted to asset. The companies that act now will lead the continent's low carbon future, secure long-term competitiveness in the global energy ecosystem. It is time for Nigeria to rise up and act. It is time for Nigeria to take the leap and take the lead. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Esther Essien. Thank you for this wonderful insight. I think I would say that you took your time to break it down, to the level of even a layman. So I believe everyone participating today would have understood, where the value lies, where money can be made, where carbon credit can be easily commercialized. Thank you so much. Please, participants, help me appreciate Ms. Esther Essien. Use your emoji, your clapping, just appreciate, the exposition we have received from her in this conversation. Thank you so much. So I will quickly do a recap just for us to update our notes, and then we'll take a few questions. If you have questions for Mr. Femi or Ms. Esther Essien, please get it ready. Maybe you can put it in the chat box. We'll take those questions so that the two sections can be interactive. And then if there are things you need to clarify or some contributions you would like to make to what has already been said, please, you have the opportunity. I'll just take 1 or 2 minutes just to bring out some key points, Esther made during her presentation. So one of the things she emphasized on is basically where the strongest commercial value, lies today, where the strongest commercial value, and she talked a whole lot around methane capture, and flare gas reduction. And she strongly maintained that this offered the fastest return on investment. And the reason is not far-fetched, of course. Yeah, methane has a high value, high market value and high global warming potential, just like she mentioned. So every ton captured delivered both revenue and compliance benefit. And of course, she talked about carbon credit premiums. She mentioned that methane credits trade higher than typical nature-based credit, and this make the whatever project you're embarking on more commercially attractive. So existing infrastructure can also be retrofitted, in order to create value to the system. And now, the other issues she talked about: how can companies scale methane capture, flare gas reduction projects, starting with high quality measurement and monitoring. I think Mr. Femi also touched on this. He touched on MRV, which is very critical. And one thing that is also lacking today within Nigeria ecosystem is the fact that experts and people, experts competence, capacities around MRV is not adequate yet in the country. There are not many companies or many firms that are involved in this in terms of verification, particularly in terms of verification. There are few, very, very few. So I'm saying this is a market, is a new area, that people that are interested in this subject can explore. Because in the near future, I believe that there will be a lot of attention to this, and the activities in this area will increase. And people that have competence in verification will be highly needed, because you cannot operate carbon credit or carbon market without MRV. It's a very key and critical component of the whole thing we are talking about. So there is also the point she made around use carbon finance to unlock early stage capital. And this is very key. There is the opportunity for blended finance as well to de-risk the project at the early stage of it. You have a mix of finance, less of commercial finance and more of patient finance to be able to enter. If you're making if you want to enter the market, or you are at the entry stage of the market. So if you can look for blended finance that can give you the leverage, give you opportunity to be able to take the risk and then understand, or kind of understand how the market will be, or how, whether you succeed or not. So because in every venture anyone goes into, there is no risk-free venture, and seeking finance in this sector also requires attention to be paid to the risk side, and investors are also risk sensitive. So if you are considering an early stage entry into the market and you're looking for fund, I think the wisdom will be to look for a fund that is less commercial focus, so that it can give you leverage to make your mistakes, take your risk, and then rebound at some point. So these are some of the points she made. And she also talked about integrating flare to fuel and flare to power solutions, which is very, very critical. Just as I mentioned before, Nigeria is flaring in excess of 2 billion cubic feet of gas as at 2024 numbers that are in the public. This is wealth that the system burnt in the atmosphere. So it can be converted. There are a lot of innovations out there. So there is this innovation. I think I was reading one article. Is in the US. You can place a data center near flare stack or near oil and gas production facilities where there are flare stacks. You can build a modular data center. Of course, data centers require huge amount of energy. So you can, in US, this technology is already commercialized, it's tested and commercialized. You can install a data center close to oil and gas production facility where there are flare stacks, so that instead of putting those gases into through the flare stacks, you can channel them to produce electricity for you to power your modular energy centers. So there are a lot of innovations that can be done. I know all of these innovations ideas require financing to scale. So that's why, we mention blended finance and less commercial focused finance for you to venture into a market like this. So, but all in all, the bottom line is that there are a lot of opportunity in carbon credit, and Nigeria is very much untapped. Nigeria is a market that is yet untapped. And I believe in no distant time from now, given the rate of awareness and the public interest that this has generated, I believe a lot of things will start to happen in this space. All right, with that, I would like to take some questions from participants. Let me check if, please, you can also, I don't know if it's possible, you can also unmute yourself and ask your questions. So I think we have one question already. So from Sunday, though, we say, thank you, Mr. Femi, for your insightful presentation. Could you kindly confirm if there is any effective carbon market in Nigeria? This question is for Mr. Femi. Mr. Femi, please.
Yes, thank you. The question around carbon market in Nigeria, is that the question? Can you go over it again, please?
He said could you kindly confirm if there is any effective carbon market in Nigeria?
Okay, yeah, maybe nuance a bit to that question, really, because of the terms we use. So in terms of carbon market, carbon market, there are a couple or a lot of them around in Nigeria ongoing in terms of carbon projects now. So there are a couple of carbon projects under the VER. We also have a carbon program that have been registered in the past under the CDM when it's still very lucrative. That's the one I explained that has to be done with the government, right? So most carbon programs that is currently ongoing is associated with the voluntary market side of it. So if that is what you call the carbon market in Nigeria, yes. So we have a couple of projects that is already registered on global registry like the gold standard, and we also have the like of the Vera standard as well. And I think just recently the national NCCC for Nigeria have also advanced towards establishing and about to launch now finalizing the national registry where more projects would definitely be bumping into that platform anytime from now. So it's the right time to begin to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, the Nigerian Climate Change Council leadership approved the National Carbon Market Framework. I think that framework has been approved. Is aimed to unlock about $2.5 to $3 billion annually in carbon finance over the next decade. And a regulatory guidance has been already issued on Nigerian carbon market approach. I believe that question probably was seeking to know if there is any indigenous standard body like Vera or the likes. I do not think, Mr. Femi.
Okay, yeah, in terms of registry now, maybe we now call it registry, not just
Or
the carbon
registry.
market. Yeah, if we have
Yeah.
local registry. Yeah, we had there are a couple of little or small registry, but are more local. So we don't call them international focus now. Local registries that focuses on projects that are associated with the national. We have the Lagos Carbon Registry. I mentioned that in my presentation. And then we also have the one that we mentioned now, the NCCC registry, which is the national that is coming up. We also have the one of Carbon Credit Network, which is also private, is local as well. And then that is the one that I've been able to onboard and certify a couple of solar and cook stove project in the past. And we now have the other one that you will likely call carbon trading platform, which is different from registry. So we also have a couple of them in Nigeria. Yeah, so it's a global phenomenon, and we have few companies locally trying to get into that space, but no one that is truly international. So the one that is still recognized today that a lot of projects in Nigeria is associated with is the Vera and also the Gold Standard.
Thank you. So, Chigos, if I may just add, so I just wanted to say that, since the activation of this market framework by the NCCC, and thank you, Femi, for that. I mean, everyone is firstly trying to be in compliance with Vera and Gold standards, right? Because they are world class. Everybody wants to be sure that, any credits being sold are properly verified and all of that, right? But I was having a conversation with the leadership of the NCCC, and they pointed out the fact that right now, any credits being traded from any offsets being traded currently from Nigeria has to go through them, so that they've said that it would be illegal to now sell anything without the approval from them. So we should be mindful of that as we keep on having these conversations. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that contribution. So we can take one more question. We have one hand up. I'm coming to you in a moment, Kingsley. So this question says, my name is Badebowele Oguntola. Thank you for the insightful discussion on methane capture in oil and gas sector. I'm currently developing a community-based biogas project that captures methane from organic waste and converts it into clean energy. Since methane reduction is a major part of Nigeria's climate commitment, what concrete pathways exist for small but scalable methane avoidance projects like ours to assess technical support, carbon credit certification, and blended financing so we can expand our impact from community level to a state or national scale? I think this looks like the topic Ms. Esther Essen handled. Ms. Essen, would you like to give it a bite?
Please, can you take the question again?
The question says, I'll just take it in part from the part he asked the question. He says, since methane reduction is part of Nigerian climate commitment, what concrete pathways exist for small but scalable methane avoidance projects like ours to assess technical support, carbon credit certification, and blended financing. Did you get that?
Yes.
Okay.
More companies in Nigeria can access valuable support from the government grants and fundings, like the SMIDAN grant that offers up to $100,000 for micro, small, and medium enterprises. And then there's also something being done by the Tony Elumelu Foundation, and even the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund so has something in that light. It's just for the company to check out these opportunities and then put whatever guideline that is being given.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I will quickly take this one more question. It says, what organizations offer credit certification? I think Mr. Femi has answered this. What KPIs are most effective for monitoring HSE performance in extractive operations running in remote or high-risk areas? I'm not sure this question is in line with the topic we are treating today. So maybe we can take this offline. I will give opportunity to Kingsley Adendo to just ask his question quickly.
Okay, thank you so much, Chigozie, Essien, and Femi. Although I joined a bit late, but my question was actually in line with what someone, I think Oguntla, the one that asked about that talks about carbon methane capture project. So I actually run a small, for now, community-based mangrove reforestation project. But the idea of it is a long-term carbon, to use as a voluntary, to sell it in a voluntary market as a carbon capture project. However, I noticed, after a while that for us to, because I had a meeting with some broker in Indonesia, and I was told that the profit of it is based on scale. You need some, the forest needs to be sizable before you can make any reasonable profit of it. And in most communities, the project is based in the Niger Delta and Doni in particular. Most of these coastal communities, they don't have that space when it comes to land. And sometimes where you find the mangrove, where you find a vast number of the mangrove forest is somewhere off the coast where the jurisdiction of the community may, conflict with that, for example, of the federal government because of our land laws in the country. So in this case, what I just want, I don't know if it's Femi or SN this time, but what can a small project like this do to scale their operations, to make such project attractive for whoever is coming into the voluntary market to acquire such project as an offset? Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. Maybe Femi can go for this. I think you have done a proof of concept on the cooking gas stuff. So,
yeah, thanks so much. I think it's an interesting point that he has raised there, and also for the friends that talked about the methane project. So these are all welcome. Unfortunately, we're not doing enough in Africa, especially in Nigeria, and these are the kind of conversations we should be having. So if anyone tells you that your rainforest or your afforestation program do not qualify for carbon credit or the potential is not right, please discard that. And no one should convince you otherwise. We will encourage you to go for it. We can take this conversation outside of this meeting. We have the aspect of our organization that also provide pro bono and also free evaluation. So we can provide some evaluation and give you some immediate feedback in terms of the readiness of your project and what the potential could be in terms of carbon credit potential generation. And also there are a couple like my other panelists have already mentioned from CBN. There are a couple of technical support that is available to also support you at the initial stage of this, both public, private, and also we have other international organizations as well that support the initial development phase of some of this project. And we also have other windows as well where your project might just be solving another problem that another big company in Nigeria is already facing. Imagine you have a small meeting of small afforestation program. We can easily match you with another organization looking at solving that problem. So at the end of the day, it's a win-win for everyone. So the potential is there. China and Asia, they've used a lot of carbon credit revenue to expand and to develop and to launch a lot of big programs and projects. We need to do more in Nigeria. So we have the methodology, and I think that program is something that is welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Femi. Just to clarify a bit, I think. Okay, so Mr. Femi still needed some more clarification. He said, Mr. Idowu Sunday still needed some more clarification. He's saying that I meant the market where emissions can be traded. I think we have answered this question. Mr. Femi has answered this question, and I did also mention that Nigeria Council on Climate Change has issued a regulatory guidance for Nigeria's carbon market and also has approved a national carbon market framework, which set out rules and ambition for trading mitigation actions under both voluntary and future compliance regimes. So I don't know, Femi, if you want to contribute a bit.
You've already handled that correctly. So Nigeria can as well trade on carbon, and we also have buyers as well in Nigeria that also buy offset. So if we have local project, we also have companies that are looking at meeting their ESG, their reporting requirement that might be interested in your premium or good offset.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So the last question here, Salihu said, how about inclusiveness of persons with disability? Mr. Femi, is there any response to this?
Sorry, inclusiveness of persons with disability. Okay, maybe if we can have more context in terms of support for such group.
I wouldn't know. Okay, Sally, if you can provide more context. Do you mean if persons with disability can participate in the market or what? Just provide a bit more context and we can clarify that. Okay, so our time is running up. We have about 10 minutes to wrap up this. I think it has been quite refreshing and insightful, learning new things and asking questions and getting clarifications. I will quickly touch on one point with the time we have, but along the line, please, if you still have question, go ahead and put it in the chat box, or you can raise up your hands to just ask the question. I like to touch on global investment perspective, attracting capital. What is the international investor view on African carbon projects? I think from my own view, African carbon projects are increasingly attractive. If you ask me, that is what I would say. But the appetite is strongest for projects that demonstrate high integrity, strong governance, and scalable impact. I don't know if our maturity level in Nigeria has gotten to this at this point. Maybe Mr. Femi can clarify that a little bit more later, because I know that high integrity carbon credit attract premium pay in terms of cost. And then globally, the market is shifting, of course, towards premium, high quality credit. And then another key thing here is MRV. We cannot actually emphasize it enough. I think we've talked about it, and I did emphasize the fact that it is very critical, and I do not know if we'll have a lot of people with competence and capacity to carry out this. From the interaction I have had in the recent time and the experience I have had working in this space, I think it's only few companies that can still provide MRV services at this point that is credible. So it's still a space that I think a lot of people would like to venture into. Now, pricing dynamics is also very important. Of course, there is geopolitical side of things where a ton of carbon in Europe is not the same. And somewhere in Africa, in South Africa, in Nigeria, the cost of carbon here is a bit lower. I don't know how that is incentivizing or motivating, players in that space to even invest more. But then when evaluating African projects, investors apply rigorous due diligence frameworks, looking closely around so many factors, political stability inclusive, developer track record, permanence risk, leakage controls, and many more issues. And as we said, blended finance is also playing a catalytic role. Instruments from climate fund, DFIs, and philanthropic capitals can help to de-risk early stage project development and crowd in private investors. That is very, very key. I know, well, maybe I come from the background of investment. That's why I'm emphasizing it so very, very much, because I know it is not easy to get commercially focused fund, especially when you are at the early stage in the project. And then compared to other emerging markets, I think Africa stands out for its vast mitigation potential, especially in the nature-based solutions. I think someone talked about nature-based solution, clean cooking, which Femi and his company is piloting and making, huge progress. And its methane reduction. Of course, project must demonstrate operational credibility and long-term sustainability. Investors are optimistic, but disciplined. That is the word. Investors are optimistic, but disciplined. They want strong climate impact, measurable outcome, and clear pathways to scale. So these are very, very, very critical. And when these elements are in place, I believe Africa is one of the most compelling regions globally for high integrity carbon investment. Mr. Femi, please, you can come in and maybe make some few input on this topic.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chigozie. You've already highlighted most of the hunch back there, which I completely align with. The only area that I just want to highlight is the aspect of the high integrity and the association between a premium carbon asset or carbon credit. It's very important that Africa and in Nigeria, we represent a unique geography that have the potential and the tendency to churn out. And that's why globally, carbon credit from West Africa, from East Africa has been a bit more pricey than you will have in some part of Asia. And in order to be able to guarantee this, imagine if you can get a premium price of well over 70-80% of what other types of projects will get in other region. And that is only possible in Africa owing to the fact that most investors, they are not just going to the market to go and shop around for carbon credit anymore. They are also interested because that is the demand from the board. That is the demand from the investors that, okay, can you show and demonstrate what are those co-benefits that align and set these credits apart from other credits that they could have gotten in the market. So that's why when you are developing your carbon credit project, it's also important to highlight how this project is actually touching changing livelihoods for youth, for women, how the project is associated is creating jobs. What are the SDGs that is associated with this? So under the Gold Standard SD Sustainable Development Program, so they have a different rating as well for projects that is actually been identified to be checking those boxes. And of course, under the Vera also have the SD Vista. So not just ordinary carbon credit program, but then those ones that have strong community and strong SDG components to it. And lastly, talking about ensuring investors run after your credit, ensuring that you are able to secure the right funding for this kind of projects, because most carbon credit projects actually pay itself back within 4 to 6 years. So carbon credit project that is scaled, can effectively be a better financial return investment focus for most organizations, and the P&L looks even much better when you are able to associate it with some of these co-benefits. So KKAI is first around the MRV space that have been able to integrate both mobile technology in terms of using WhatsApp to enhance carbon credit monitoring, reporting, and of course, because why you see a lot of projects not being able to achieve good price even after it's been certified is because of these investors are not really sure the type of methodology and how rigorous, and of course they can't really trust the process by which some of those credits were actually certified or verified. So that is why with the new technology of AI, artificial intelligence, and coupling these directly to the lifestyle and being able to capture, especially from the LPG and the cook stove program that we've done, including some tree planting programs as well. You see, installing these IoT devices helps to enhance and assure you getting this premium pricings. And of course, it comes with a cost. So sometimes technology makes even this project more expensive. And that is why a lot of people are unable to move forward, even when they have a very good project. And investors as well, when they evaluate the cost of the technology associated in ensuring the monitoring and evaluation, then some of them tends to push back. But thanks to Kike AI, with what we're doing, we have been able to cut down the cost of monitoring by almost 80%. So what you used to cost, either is your methane project or your tree planting or your transport or your mobility or cook stove program. So you can reduce the cost of monitoring MRV by 80%. So through this, investors' confidence is there. And of course, you can even get your certification more faster. So we are open to more conversation after the event today.
Yeah.
And thanks so much, CSR-in-Action, for inviting us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Femi. So I will leave the floor for Dr. Bekeme to wrap up.
Thank you all so very much. I think it's been a wonderful session. Before I close out, I just wanted to just speak a little bit to the question around the mangrove. Just been eating at me about scaling up with the mangrove project. And I see that we've heard Femi talk about ensuring that strong co-benefits are emphasized. He talked about the SDGs angle. He talked about ensuring that you also use integrous MRV tools as well. And that's important. He talked about ensuring that you use a recognized methodology, whether it's Vera or Gold Standard. And I just wanted to emphasize, establishing a credible baseline as well. So whether it's document historical degradation, mapping your project area with GIS and all of that, all of these things, help facilitate what you want to do in terms of making your project marketable and scalable. And I think it's important that because small projects often struggle because verification costs are high, you can join an existing program of activities as well to make it less expensive for you and ensure that you also secure partnerships, not just for credibility, but also offset some of those major costs off of you. And just to clarify what I had said about the NCCC and MCCC's framework and the voluntary market. So the federal government or the NCCC have not actually prohibited the sale. What I was trying to say is that the sale of voluntary carbon credits, what I was trying to say is that you must, regardless, you must register with the NCC. Sorry, I keep looking here because I have two screens open. You must register with the NCC, and you will get a letter of no objection or letter of authorization, and you must report issuance and retirement to be in compliance. So what they've simply done is added oversight to the entire process. So it's not do as you like before. And then, with regard to persons with disabilities, I think I understand where they're coming from in terms of inclusion. So, whether it's from the point of view of them being players, entrepreneurial players, or they being the community members as well, we have to design projects with disability inclusion from the start. They must not be an add-on. It should be built into project design, into community consultations, into livelihood programs, into monitoring and verification processes and all communication channels. And it could be that you'd ensure that you hold meetings in physically accessible venues, that there's provision of sign language interpretation, there's provision of materials in Braille, large print, audio, whatever, that there are aides and caregivers present, that transportation is there, that trainers or facilitators guided on disability sensitivity and respectful communication. It's important that people of all abilities are included in the conversation. So having said that, I just want to thank you all for an engaging and truly insightful session. One rhetorical question or remark stood out today after Femi Oye's presentation, where the person said, "What if the problem could actually fund the solution?" Which was emphasized by Ms. Essien, who also said liabilities can indeed become assets. So that is the promise of carbon markets. Femi reminded us that carbon credits represent one verified ton of CO2 reduced, and it showed how Nigeria's lost 200 billion cubic feet of gas in 2024, which equates to 38 million tons of CO2 and hundreds of millions of dollars in missed opportunities. His slides and other conversations highlight over 95,000 preventable deaths from household pollution, and this basically underlines why this transition is urgent. Esther talked about extractives can unlock real value beyond the negativity that they're associated with. Talked about methane capture, flare reduction, renewable energy integration, CCS, and all of that. And all of these can help generate long-term credits while restoring communities and land. I believe that our regulators are working hard, and that Nigeria's new carbon market policy demonstrates intent, but more streamlining is essential, just considering all the conversations that we had at COP, so that there are simpler approval pathways, so that there are faster MRV alignment, and that there are clearer compliance triggers. I think that the private sector must also move decisively. I saw someone in the comment talking about insetting, because private sector companies can actually, so as opposed to offsetting, right? Private companies can proactively ensure that their own value chains are limiting the offset, or they're managing the emissions properly through their value chain, so that there is a limitation in any negativity. The technologies and frameworks already exist, and the opportunity cost of delay is too high. We're saying it's expensive now, but the more we live it, the more expensive it becomes. And for everyday citizens who just wanted to have an understanding of the discussion, I hope that today's discussion actually shows that clean energy choices and community projects create real benefits, whether it's to do with health, whether it's to do with livelihoods and restored environments. And at CSR-in-Action, this has been our mission for the past 15 years. And through Fuel Tree, which is the partnership that Femi Oye was talking about, his case study dwelt on Fuel Tree and its antecedent through the Kike AI. I'm actually the MD of Fuel Tree, that partnership that we have with Femi Oye and his companies, and technology-enabled MRV systems. Through all of this, we're ensuring that emissions reductions become verifiable assets. And with our partnership with Carbon Direct, whose chief scientist served as the Obama administration's second most senior environmental official, we are also well placed to help investors tap into Africa's projected $6 billion annual carbon opportunity, whilst again ensuring that Article 6 delivers genuine community benefits. So my sincere thanks again to you, Femi Oye, and to Esther Essien for your depth of insight. And Chigozie Ejimogu, I can't thank you enough. I thought that was an excellent moderation. You were well informed, you know your onion, and thank you so much for delivering this so expertly. So thank you all for being a part of this conversation. I hope that we're able to move from understanding to action, and from potential to value for Nigeria, for Africa, and for our communities. I hope you have a wonderful day. Do reach out to us if you have any questions, any comments. We'll have the slides on the SITEI.org website for you to access. And yes, so please use our email info at CSR-in-Action.com or .org to reach out to us. Thank you, and have a blessed day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.